The sound of shattering glass punctuates my sister's announcement like an exclamation mark. My mother's favorite crystal vase lies in pieces on the hardwood floor, knocked over by Lily's dramatic gesture as she waves her left hand, showing off an engagement ring that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "We're getting married in June," Lily squeals, completely ignoring the destruction at her feet. "And we want to have it at the Plaza Hotel." I'm Joy, and this is the moment my carefully constructed facade of family harmony finally cracks. My father's face drains of color. "The Plaza? Sweetheart, with your medical bills. Daddy, please, this is my special day. I've always dreamed of this." Of course she has. And of course, they'll find a way to make it happen. They always do for Lily. "We'll figure something out," my mother says, already reaching for her phone, probably to check their credit card limits. She steps around the broken glass like it isn't even there. "Maybe we can take out a second mortgage." I can't help but laugh. It comes out harsh, bitter. "A second mortgage? Are you serious?" 3 pairs of eyes turn to me, as if suddenly remembering I exist. My daughter Emily clutches my hand, sensing the tension in the room. She's only 6, but she's already learned to read these family dynamics better than most adults. "Joy, please," my mother warns. "This is Lily's moment." "It's always Lily's moment," I say, my voice trembling. "When Ryan died, you couldn't even come to the funeral because Lily had a doctor's appointment. A routine checkup, Mom. Not even an emergency." Lily's lower lip quivers. "That's not fair. You know I need regular monitoring." "What's not fair is that Dad works 3 jobs to pay for your treatments, while you post Instagram stories from spa weekends." The words explode out of me, years of resentment finally finding their voice. "How dare you?" My mother steps between us. "Your sister is sick." "Is she? Really? Because she looks pretty healthy when she's shopping at Nordstrom or having lunch at that new French place downtown." Lily bursts into tears, right on cue. My father moves to comfort her, but I'm not finished. "You kicked me out of my old room because Lily needed a recovery space. I was 8 months pregnant, and you made me sleep on the couch. That was temporary," my father says weakly. "Everything's temporary when it comes to me, isn't it? But Lily's needs, those are always permanent, always priority." My mother's face hardens. "If you can't be happy for your sister, maybe you should leave." "Happy?" I laugh again, and it sounds unhinged even to my own ears. "Happy about watching you bankrupt yourselves for her wedding, while I had to take out loans to bury my husband." "Mommy," Emily's voice is small, scared. "It's okay, baby." I squeeze her hand. "We're leaving." "Joy, don't be dramatic," my father starts. But I'm already gathering our things. "No, Mom's right. We should leave. But before we go, you should know something." I pull out my phone, hands shaking. "I've been doing some digging. Those medical bills you've been paying. I'd take a closer look at where that money's really going." Lily's face goes white. For once, the tears stop. "What are you talking about?" my father asks. "Ask your precious daughter about her secret credit card. The one she uses for her treatments at Saks Fifth Avenue." "You're lying," Lily shrieks. "Get out," my mother screams. "Get out of this house." I grab Emily's coat and my purse. "Gladly. But remember this moment. Remember when you chose her lies over my truth." Again, as I walk out into the night with my daughter, I hear Lily's sobs and my mother's soothing words. Same script, different day. But this time, something's different. This time, I'm not coming back to apologize. This time, I'm going to make them see exactly what their golden child has been doing to this family. And God help them all when the truth finally comes out. Clara's guest room feels like a refuge, but the memories won't let me sleep. Emily's steady breathing from the air mattress beside me only reminds me of another night, 7 years ago, when I sat alone in a hospital waiting room while my sister monopolized our parents' attention. Again, my high school graduation. That's where it all started to unravel. I trace the edge of my phone, staring at the dozen missed calls from my father. The screen lights up again. Mom this time. I silence it and pull up the photo gallery instead. There it is, the image that started tonight's explosion. Lily at Le Cirque last week, champagne glass raised high, wearing a designer dress that costs more than 3 of Dad's mortgage payments. You're still awake? Clara appears in the doorway, holding 2 steaming mugs. I made chamomile. Thanks. I accept the tea, but don't drink. I keep thinking about what Dad said when I got into Columbia. We're so proud, but with Lily's new treatment, they couldn't help with tuition. Clara finishes. She's heard this story before. Meanwhile, Lily dropped out of community college because it was too stressful with her condition. I pull up another photo on my phone. Look at this stress. Clara leans in, examining the image of Lily at a spa resort from 2 months ago. Those mud treatments must be part of her medical regimen. You know what's funny? When Ryan died, I had to beg them to watch Emily for the funeral. Lily had a migraine that day. My laugh comes out hollow, but she managed to post 3 TikTok dance videos. Joy. Clara hesitates. Have you ever shown them these photos? They wouldn't believe me, or they'd make excuses. They always do. My phone buzzes again. A text from Dad. Please come home. We can talk about this. Delete it, Clara advises. You need space to think. Space won't change anything. You know what I found last week? I pull out a crumpled receipt from my purse. This fell out of Lily's purse when she asked me to grab her medication. It's for a weekend at the Ritz-Carlton, the same weekend Mom and Dad took out a personal loan for her emergency treatment. Clara's eyes widen. Are you sure? The dates match perfectly. I checked their bank statements. Dad still uses my old laptop, never cleared the passwords. I spread more receipts across the bed. Look, Gucci, Prada, Day Spas, all charged to an account called Medical Expenses LLC. She set up a whole fake company. That's fraud, Clara whispers. And that's just what I've found so far. My hands shake as I gather the papers. They remortgaged their house 3 times for her. Dad's working himself to death at 60, and she's spending it all on... A small voice interrupts. Mommy? Emily sits up on her mattress, rubbing her eyes. Are we going to live with Aunt Clara forever? My throat tightens. No, baby. Just until Mommy figures some things out. Is Aunt Lily sick again? The innocent question hits like a punch to the gut. Even my 6-year-old has been conditioned to worry about Lily's health. Emily, sweetheart. Clara steps in. How about some hot chocolate in the kitchen? After they leave, I pull up one last photo on my phone. It's from my wedding day. The only time I've seen Lily genuinely sick. Not from her mysterious chronic illness, but from rage that someone else was the center of attention. The next text from Dad makes my decision for me. Lily's very upset. She needs her big sister. I type back 4 words. She needs to confess. Then I open my laptop and start documenting everything. Every receipt, every bank statement, every social media post that contradicts her medical claims. 7 years of manipulation and lies, carefully cataloged in a growing spreadsheet. They wanted me to be the responsible one. Fine. I'll show them exactly how responsible I can be. My phone lights up one last time. It's Lily. You're just jealous because Mom and Dad love me more. I save the message, add it to my evidence file. Then I text back, enjoy it while it lasts, sis. The truth has a way of coming out. I close my laptop, listening to Emily's distant laughter from the kitchen. For the first time since Ryan died, I feel something other than grief or resentment. I feel powerful. Let them worry about what I'll do next. They've had years of peace while I swallowed their lies. Now it's my turn. The medical billing office smells like disinfectant and secrets. I adjust my name badge, borrowed from Clara's cousin, who works in healthcare administration, and smile at the receptionist. Just need to verify some insurance claims for the Martinez account. 3 years of customer service work taught me how to sound professional, detached. Inside, my heart hammers against my ribs. 20 minutes later, I'm staring at records that confirm everything I suspected. And worse, my phone vibrates. A text from Susan, Emily's nanny. Your mother stopped by the house again, wanted to see Emily. I ignore it, focusing on the screen before me. Lily's treatments at Metropolitan Hospital ended 2 years ago. The specialist she claims to see monthly doesn't exist. But the bills, the massive crushing bills my parents are drowning in, keep coming. Finding everything okay? The receptionist peers over. I nod, snapping photos discreetly with my phone. Just thorough documentation. Back in my car, I call Clara. It's worse than we thought. She's been forging medical documents, creating fake bills. The whole thing is a scam. Jesus. Clara breathes. What are you gonna do? Before I can answer, another call comes in. Dad. I switch back to Clara. I'll call you later. I answer his call, keeping my voice neutral. Yes? Joy, please. He sounds tired, more tired than usual. Your mother's a wreck. Lily's condition is getting worse with all this stress. Is it? The words come out sharp. When was the last time you actually saw her at a doctor's appointment? Silence. That's what I thought. She needs privacy with her medical. Did you know her specialist, Dr. Chen, doesn't exist? That Metropolitan Hospital hasn't treated her in 2 years. More silence. Then, what are you talking about? I have proof, Dad. Real proof. Bank statements, forged documents, everything. Your precious Lily has been. A text interrupts me, from Lily. Back off or I tell them about Ryan. My blood turns to ice. Joy, what proof? What are you? I'll call you back. I hang up, hands shaking as I open Lily's text thread. Me. What about Ryan? Lily. About what really happened that night, about whose fault it really was. The memory hits like a physical blow. Ryan, rushing to the hospital because Lily called, crying, claiming she needed emergency help. The rainy night. The truck he never saw coming. But she wasn't even there when he arrived. She was at a club downtown. I saw the Instagram posts later, time-stamped during her supposed crisis. Me. You wouldn't dare. Lily, try me. Mom and Dad would be devastated to learn their perfect older daughter killed her husband because she was too busy being jealous to tell him I'd called to cancel. My vision blurs. She's twisting it, manipulating the truth like she does everything else. But the guilt I've carried for 3 years, wondering if I should have told Ryan to wait, to verify Lily really needed help, rises up like bile. Another text from Susan. Your mother's still here. She's crying on the front porch. Emily's asking questions. I start the car, hands steady now despite the rage coursing through me. Two can play at manipulation. Me. Funny thing about proof, Lily. I have the club receipts from that night, the Instagram posts, the cell phone records showing you called Ryan for help while you were dancing at Vault. Wonder what Mom and Dad would think about that. 3 dots appear as she types, disappear, appear again. Lily, you're bluffing. I sent her a screenshot of her own Instagram story from that night. Her, dancing with friends. Timestamp matching exactly when she called Ryan begging for help. Me, want to try that thread again? No response. I drive home, mind racing. She showed her hand too early. Gave me leverage I didn't have before. Classic Lily, always overplaying when she feels cornered. Susan meets me at the door. Your mother left finally. Emily's upset. I find my daughter in her room, clutching the teddy bear Ryan gave her. Grandma said Aunt Lily's really sick, she whispers, that we're being mean to her. I sit on the bed, pulling Emily close. Sometimes people who seem sick are just really good at pretending, baby. Like when I fake a tummy ache to skip school. Something like that. I kiss her head, an idea forming. Hey, remember how Daddy always said the truth sets you free? Emily nods. Well, Mommy's about to set a lot of truth free. I pull out my phone, starting an email to my parents' financial advisor. Subject line, fraud alert, Lily Martinez Medical Expenses, LLC. Time to let the dominoes fall where they may. The financial advisor's response, Arrives at 3 a.m. I've been refreshing my email every few minutes, watching Emily sleep while my world threatens to implode again. Ms. Martinez, this is a serious matter requiring immediate investigation. I've forwarded your evidence to the relevant authorities. My phone rings. Unknown number. Hello? This is Detective Sarah Morris. We received some concerning documentation about potential financial fraud. My hands shake as I step into the hallway. Yes, I sent those files. We'll need you to come in. There are complications you should be aware of. 2 hours later, I'm sitting in a sterile police station conference room, staring at documents I never expected to see. Your father's signature appears on several of these authorizations. Detective Morris says carefully. He was listed as co-founder of the LLC. The room spins. That's impossible. He wouldn't. The evidence suggests he was aware of the arrangement. Whether he understood the full scope is unclear, but legally speaking, I stop listening. On the table, Dad's signature mocks me. Not forged, not copied. His actual signature, on document after document. My phone buzzes. Clara, Emily's asking for you. Everything okay? I text back one word, no. The detective's voice cuts through my haze. There's more. Your sister's fiancé is connected to several similar schemes in 3 states. We've been building a case. The pieces click together with sickening clarity. Dad's signature, Lily's expensive fiancé, the rushed wedding plans. They're planning to run. I need to go. I stand abruptly. My daughter, Ms. Martinez. Detective Morris's voice stops me. If your father was involved unknowingly, coming forward now could help his case. I laugh, hollow. Help his case? He chose this. He chose her. Again. Outside, the morning sun feels like an accusation. I call Clara. Don't let Emily watch the news today, I say, without preamble. Joy, what's happening? I started something I can't stop. Just keep her away from screens, please. I drive to my parents' house, knowing what I'll find. The driveway is empty. The front door stands slightly open. Inside, drawers hang open. Papers litter the floor. On the kitchen counter, a note in my mother's handwriting. She's our daughter, too. My phone rings. Lily. Enjoying your revenge? Her voice drips poison. Dad's having chest pains from the stress. But I guess that's what you wanted, right? To destroy everything? Where are you taking them? Taking them. They chose to come. Just like they always choose me. A pause. You know why? Because I need them. You've always been so strong, so independent. The perfect daughter who never needed anything. Except now you need to win, don't you? You're stealing their retirement, their house. I'm giving them purpose. What are you giving them except pain? The line goes dead. I sink onto the kitchen floor, surrounded by the debris of my parents' fled life. A photo album lies open nearby. My wedding day. Ryan smiling. Lily scowling in her bridesmaid dress. Dad looking proud, his arm around me. Dad, who signed those documents, who chose to be complicit. My phone buzzes. Detective Morris, we've flagged their passports. Your sister's fiancé was spotted at Newark Airport. Another text follows. Your parents withdrew everything from their accounts this morning. All of it. I should feel triumphant. This is what I wanted. Lily exposed, their web of lies unraveled. Instead, I feel hollow. The front door creaks. I tense. But it's just Clara. Susan has Emily, she says softly. I thought you shouldn't be alone. I did this, I whisper. I broke everything. No. Clara sits beside me. They broke it long ago. You just stopped pretending it wasn't broken. My phone lights up again. Dad, I know what you did. His text reads. But you don't understand. She needs us. She'll die without us. I stare at his words, feeling something shift inside me. Not grief, not rage, something colder. She won't die, I text back. But your retirement might. Your house might. Your freedom might. His response comes quickly. You wouldn't. I think of Emily, waiting at home. Of Ryan, dead because of Lily's lies. Of years of being the responsible one, the strong one, the one they could ignore because I wouldn't break. Watch me, I type, and press send. Detective Morris's words echo in my head as I scroll through Aunt Rachel's Facebook comments. Your sister's operation spans multiple states. This isn't just about family anymore. I click share on another carefully selected photo. Lily at the Ritz, dripping in designer clothes, time-stamped during her supposed hospital stay. The comments roll in immediately, but she was too sick to attend my son's wedding that weekend. Wait, isn't this when Daniel said they needed to borrow money for her treatment? My phone buzzes. A text from Mom's sister. Just saw the posts, called the hospital she claimed to be at last month. They've never heard of her. The dominoes are falling. One by one. Clara appears in my doorway. Your cousin Marcus called. Says your parents just tried to refinance their beach house through his firm. Did he approve it? No. But Joy... She hesitates. He said your dad was crying. Actually crying. Something twists in my chest. I push it down, focusing on my laptop screen. They made their choice. Did they, or did Lily make it for them? Before I can answer, my phone lights up. Detective Morris again. We've located your sister's fiancé, she says, without preamble. He's agreed to cooperate, claims your parents had no idea about the larger scheme. They knew enough, perhaps, but here's what you need to know. Your sister's pregnant. The world stops. What? 3 months along. She mentioned it during her fiancé's interrogation. Said that's why they needed to leave quickly. I end the call, hands shaking. A baby. Another innocent drawn into Lily's web of manipulation. My laptop pings. An email from Dad's company regarding Daniel Martinez's retirement account. Liquidation request. I open it, scanning quickly. They're trying to cash out his pension. Early withdrawal. Massive penalties. Another text from Aunt Rachel. Gloria's not answering. Rachel's posting about moving abroad. What's happening? I close my eyes, seeing Emily playing in the next room. My daughter, who still asks about her grandparents every night. Who doesn't understand why we can't visit anymore. Clara touches my shoulder. Maybe it's enough. The authorities are involved. Your parents will face consequences naturally. Like they faced consequences all those years. When they drained my college fund for Lily's treatments. When they missed Ryan's funeral. My voice cracks. When they kicked out their granddaughter. My phone buzzes again. Lily, you think you've won. Her voice is strange, tight. You have no idea what you've done. Mom's had 2 panic attacks. Dad's heart condition. But you don't care, do you? You just want your revenge. Says the woman stealing their retirement. I'm giving them what they want. A chance to save their daughter. Their real daughter. And the baby. Is that just another tool for manipulation? Silence. Then, how did your fiancé talked, Lily? It's over. Nothing's over. Her voice hardens. You think you're protecting them. Watch what happens when you take away their reason for living. Their chance to be grandparents again. The line goes dead. I stare at my screen. At the mounting evidence of years of deception. At the comments from family members, expressing shock, betrayal, anger. Clara reads over my shoulder. Your aunt, in Miami, says she's calling the police about the money they borrowed last year. Good. Joy. She pauses. What about the baby? I think of Emily, innocent and pure, of how my parents missed her first steps because Lily had a crisis that day. My fingers hover over the keyboard. One more post could destroy everything. The proof of Lily's biggest manipulation yet. The ultimate betrayal of our parents' trust. But a baby. An innocent child who didn't ask for any of this. My phone lights up with a final text from Dad. Please, whatever you're doing, stop. If not for us, for your new niece or nephew. Family should protect family. I laugh bitterly. Family should protect family. Where was that protection when Emily and I needed it? Clara watches me carefully. What are you going to do? I look at the draft post on my screen. At the evidence that would destroy not just Lily's schemes, but any chance of my parents ever breaking free from her. Then I look at Emily's photo on my desk. At her innocent smile, so much like Ryan's. I'm going to protect the only family member who deserves it, I say, and begin to type. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's freedom. The police station's fluorescent lights make everything look sickly, unreal. Detective Morris spreads photos across the interview room table. Lily and her fiancé at different banks. My parents signing documents. Account statements showing millions flowing through shell companies. Your sister's fiancé gave us everything, Morris says. But here's the problem. Your parents' signatures are on nearly every document. I stare at the evidence of my family's destruction. They didn't know. They knew enough. She slides another document forward. Your father's fingerprints are on the incorporation papers. Your mother's signature is on wire transfers. We have to treat them as willing participants. My phone vibrates. Aunt Rachel. Gloria's in the hospital. Panic attack. Daniel's not answering calls. The room spins. I grip the table's edge. There's more. Morris continues. Your sister's medical fraud extends to insurance companies across state lines. Federal charges are likely. Another text. Clara. Emily's asking about the news reports. Your parents' pictures are everywhere. I close my eyes, remembering Emily's face this morning when she saw the newspaper. Why is Grandpa crying in that photo, Mommy? The detective's voice cuts through my thoughts. We need your testimony. Against all of them. All of them? Your parents included. They're facing serious charges unless they cooperate fully. My phone lights up again. Dad. They're taking everything. His message reads. The house, the savings, your mother's inheritance. Please, help us. The same words I'd begged them with when Ryan died. When Emily and I needed somewhere to live. Ms. Martinez? Detective Morris presses. We need your decision. Another text arrives. Lily, congratulations. Mom's in cardiac care. The baby's showing signs of distress. Hope you're happy with what you've done. My hands shake as I scroll through the messages. Aunt Rachel sending hospital photos. Clara reporting that Emily's school called. She had a breakdown during class, crying for her grandparents. If they cooperate, I manage. What happens to their charges? Best case? Heavy fines? Probation. Worst case? Prison time. Prison. My 60-year-old father in a cell. My mother, who's never even had a parking ticket. And Lily? She's looking at significant time. Unless your parents take full responsibility. Which, given their pattern of behavior. Of course, even now they'd sacrifice everything for her. For the daughter who's destroying them. My phone buzzes one final time. A photo from the hospital. Mom unconscious in a bed, Dad holding her hand. His message beneath it breaks something inside me. We failed you. We know that now. But please don't let this be how our story ends. Ms. Martinez, Detective Morris's voice seems distant. We need your statement, today. I stare at the photo of my parents, thinking of Emily, of how she'll grow up knowing I sent her grandparents to prison, of the cousin she'll never meet, Lily's baby born behind bars. Can I have a moment? Outside the interview room, I call Clara. How's Emily? Sleeping finally. Joy. She asked if she did something wrong, if that's why her grandparents disappeared like Daddy did. The comparison hits like a physical blow. Ryan's death, Emily's loss, and now this, another trauma I've brought into my daughter's life. What do? I whisper. What you've always done, Clara answers. Protect the ones who need protection. I think of my parents, signing whatever Lily put in front of them. Of Mom in that hospital bed. Of Dad working 3 jobs, thinking he was saving his daughter's life. And Lily, manipulating them all while carrying an innocent child. I return to the interview room. Detective Morris looks up expectantly. I need to revise my statement, I say. You're backing out? No. I take a deep breath. I'm changing the narrative. My parents were victims too. Here's what really happened. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about saving them from themselves, even if it means sacrificing your own chance at justice. I begin to speak, weaving a new version of events, one that might save my parents, give my daughter back her grandparents, and ensure Lily's baby has a chance at a normal life. The truth burns in my throat, unspoken. But Emily's words echo in my head. Why did they disappear like Daddy did? Some cycles of trauma have to end, even if I'm the one who has to break them. The hospital corridor stretches endlessly as I approach Lily's room. Through the window, I see her lying in bed, one hand on her swollen belly, our mother hovering nearby. Dad sits in the corner, looking smaller than I've ever seen him. Detective Morris's words echo in my head. Your revised statement bought them time, but we need more. I push open the door. The machine's steady beeping fills the silence. Get out, Mom starts, but Dad raises his hand. Let her speak. Lily's eyes narrow. Come to finish what you started. I place a folder on her bedside table. Actually, I came to save you, all of you. I pull out 3 documents. These are immunity agreements, full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. We don't need, Lily begins. Your fiancé took a deal this morning. I watch her face pale. He's given them everything, Lily. The fake medical records, the shell companies, the offshore accounts. Mom sinks into a chair. What offshore accounts? The ones holding most of your retirement money. I turn to Lily. Tell them, or I will. She's lying, Lily whispers, but her hand trembles on her belly. Your pregnancy complications, I continue. The doctor you claimed needed specialized payments. He doesn't exist. The hospital has no record of your appointments for the past 2 years. Dad stands suddenly. That's not possible. You spoke to her friends, playing roles. Check your phone records. Every doctor call came from burner phones. Lily, Mom's voice cracks. Tell us she's wrong. Lily's face contorts. You don't understand. I needed, what? I cut in. Designer clothes? Luxury vacations. While Dad worked himself into heart problems to pay for your imaginary treatments. I deserved it. Lily explodes. Do you know what it's like being the sick one, the weak one, always needing help, always being pitied? You weren't sick. The words echo off the hospital walls. You haven't been sick for years. Silence falls. The machines beep steadily. What? Dad whispers. I pull out the final document. Your medical records, the real ones. Your childhood condition resolved after the last surgery, 7 years ago. Mom shakes her head. But the medications, the treatments, vitamins, placebos, ask her what she really spent the money on. Lily's face twists with rage. You self-righteous bitch. At least I gave them purpose. What did you give them? A dead husband? A burden of a grandchild? The words hang in the air like poison. That's enough. Dad's voice is different, harder. Joy. What are these immunity agreements? Sign them. Testify that you were manipulated, deceived. The DA will consider your age, your clean records. I meet Lily's eyes. All of you. Why would you help us? Lily demands. After everything. Not you, them. I gesture to our parents. And your baby. They deserve a chance at something better than your lies. Mom starts to speak, but a doctor appears in the doorway. Excuse me, Ms. Martinez. There's someone here to see you. Emily peeks around the doctor's leg, Clara behind her. My daughter's eyes find mine, then drift to Lily's pregnant belly. Is that my cousin in there? She asks innocently. The room freezes. Lily's hand tightens on her stomach. Mom stifles a sob. Yes, I say softly. And we're all going to make sure they grow up in a better family than we did. I place a pen on the bedside table. Sign the agreements. Take the deal. Or I walk out that door and let the FBI handle it. Dad moves first, reaching for the pen. Mom follows. They both look at Lily. Please, Mom whispers. For your baby. Lily stares at her stomach, then at Emily. Something shifts in her expression. The first real emotion I've seen from her in years. I never meant, she starts, then stops, picks up the pen. As they sign, Emily slips her hand into mine. Can we go home now, Mommy? I squeeze her hand, watching my family sign away their secrets, their lies, their decades of manipulation. Yes, baby, we can all go home. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about forcing them to face the truth. And sometimes, in facing that truth, you find a way to build something new from the ashes of what was lost. The nursery walls are a soft yellow, catching the morning light. I watch Lily rock her daughter, her hospital bracelet still on her wrist, 3 days old. And already Sophie has brought more honesty to this family than decades of confrontation. She has Ryan's eyes, Lily whispers, not looking up. I never noticed before, but Emily does too. The immunity deals saved our parents from prison, but the restitution payments will keep them working well past retirement. Dad's taken a consulting job. Mom's selling her antiques collection. They're learning to live with less and with truth. Joy. Lily's voice breaks. That night, when Ryan, don't. I need to say it. She meets my eyes. I called him because I was drunk, scared of driving home. But then my friends offered a ride, and I forgot to call back. I never thought. The confession hangs between us like smoke. All these years, I'd imagined something more dramatic, more malicious. The truth is worse, a careless moment that destroyed lives. Emily appears in the doorway, clutching her backpack. Ready for school, Mommy. Say goodbye to your cousin, I tell her. She approaches the rocking chair carefully. Lily tenses, then relaxes, as Emily gently touches Sophie's hand. I'll teach her everything, Emily promises solemnly, like how to color inside the lines and which swings go highest. Lily's eyes fill with tears. I'd like that. The doorbell rings. Our parents, right on schedule. They've been staying in a small apartment nearby, learning to navigate this new reality where their daughters are both strong and broken in different ways. Mom enters first, her designer clothes replaced by department store basics. We brought breakfast and paperwork. Dad adds, holding up a folder. The financial advisor has a plan for paying everyone back. Lily stiffens. I told you, I'll get a job as soon as… No, Dad cuts in. This is our responsibility. We enabled everything. It's time we face that. I watch them gather around Lily and Sophie, their voices soft, their movements hesitant, as if they're all learning a new language of family. Clara texts, court date confirmed. Lily's fiancé took the full plea deal. I delete it without responding. Some details don't need sharing. Some wounds need silence to heal. Joy. Mom touches my arm. We were thinking, there's that empty retail space next to Dad's new office. Perfect for a small business. If you still want to open that bookstore, the offer hangs there. Not a manipulation, not a debt, but a bridge. I'll think about it, I say. Emily tugs my sleeve. Can we show Sophie my room before school? Careful, Lily calls as Emily leads me away. She's still learning to trust. We all are. In Emily's room, surrounded by stuffed animals and crayon drawings, my daughter turns to me. Is Aunt Lily still sick? Not in her body, I answer carefully. But sometimes people get sick in their hearts. They forget how to be honest. Like when I said I didn't eat the cookies. Something like that. I smooth her hair. But she's getting better. We all are. Through the wall, we hear Sophie crying. Then Lily's gentle shushing. Mom's voice joins in, then Dad's quiet laugh. They sound happy, Emily observes. They're learning to be real, I tell her. It's harder than being happy sometimes. She considers this wise beyond her years. Is that why you're not angry anymore? The question stops me. I think of the evidence still in my desk drawer, the power I still hold over Lily's future, the choice I make every day not to use it. I'm choosing something better than anger, I say finally. Emily nods, satisfied. Like how you chose to let Grandma and Grandpa come back. Exactly. Sophie's cries quiet. In their place, I hear Lily singing. The same lullaby Mom used to sing to us both, before illness and lies divided us. Time for school, I say. But Emily's already heading back to the nursery, drawn by the song, by the imperfect harmony of our healing family. I follow her, watching from the doorway, as 3 generations of Martinez women gather around a new beginning. Not a happy ending. Those don't exist in real families, but maybe something stronger, something true.
Dare you defy me, even though you're just a daughter-in-law?
As my father-in-law's angry voice echoed, something cold was poured over my head. It took me a moment to realize that it was wine.
Really, such a useless daughter-in-law. I wish you would just leave.
Far from calming her husband, my mother-in-law sneered instead. And then a shocking truth was revealed to me. My name is Jessica. I am a 35-year-old company employee, and my tall stature is a complex for a woman. Additionally, I have a high educational background which allowed me to secure a job at a major foreign company, hence, I have a substantial income. I think to myself that, were I a man, I could boast about these high specs. In fact, my husband Ben often remarks,
"You were born the wrong gender, huh?"
Ben often insists that I uphold the role of the main provider, probably because I damage his pride as a man. Having a high income is not a fault, rather it's something good. If my husband doesn't think well of me, then perhaps it is an unnecessary burden for a woman. Our living expenses are deposited into a bank account under Ben's name at his request. I deposit my salary into that account. We use the funds in that account for everyday shopping, and even the utility bills and credit card payments are under my husband's name. This arrangement seems to be his way of maintaining the appearance of being the main provider. However, the mortgage payments are under my name because of the large amount, just in case something happens. Well, that's a minor issue, and I don't think there's a particular problem with Ben regarding this. What concerns me more is my relationship with my in-laws. From the beginning of our marriage, I've had a difficulty relationship with them. When we first met, they mocked me for my height, saying I was not feminine. Moreover, when they learned that I graduated from a far better university than Ben, they were hesitant about the marriage itself.
A woman with education is a haughty woman who doesn't know how to support her man.
It was completely biased, and I found it truly rude as an attitude to take at a first meeting. Eventually, Ben persuaded them, and while they stopped opposing the marriage, they still looked down on me. Still, since they are Ben's parents who raised him, I want to get along well and avoid causing trouble. However, there was another issue with my in-laws. They were exceedingly extravagant with money. They had long since spent their retirement funds, had no savings, and their pension was far from enough to cover their expenses. To top it off, when they were in the red, they asked Ben for money instead of refusing. Furthermore, instead of refusing, Ben suggested that he wanted to send them money every month. But Ben, you don't really have that much spare money, do you? I blurted out, and Ben frowned.
That's true, but I think it's better than being asked for money from strange places.
There was some truth in that. If the financially irresponsible in-laws were tempted by users, they might demand far more money from us than just the remittances. So in the end, I ended up contributing the money. I deposited more money than usual into the account we always use for living expenses and transferred it from there to my in-laws' account. I don't mind contributing the money if it's an amount I can afford. However, I want those two to clearly understand that I am the one providing the money. I asked Ben this because I hoped it might lead to a more decent treatment of me by my in-laws. This time, Ben consulted me without shouldering it alone. In other words, setting aside his complexes and pride, he relied on me. Likewise, if my in-laws, who usually look down on me as a man-like, realize there's a benefit, they might reconsider and see me as a dependable person. After all, it's because of my high education and income that I can make the remittances. If they understood that, they wouldn't be able to complain about me being presumptuous or whatever anymore. Thus, I harbored hopes for our future relationship while also contributing to my in-laws' remittances. However, contrary to my expectations, their attitude remained unchanged.
It's so sad that Ben has to be with such an unpleasant education bragging woman.
When I went to my in-laws' house, the snide comments continued as usual. I was spending as much as $3,000 every month for their living expenses, and they were completely dependent on me, yet I never heard a word of thanks from them. Usually they say I'm bragging about my education, but I only mentioned my education during my introduction. Other than that, I never brought up my education on my own.
No matter which university you graduated from, it's useless once you're in society. That's all you have to boast about, isn't it?
Such comments are indeed irritating. As far as I'm concerned, my educational background is the result of my efforts during my student days. It's not true that it's useless in society. I got my current job by utilizing what I learned at school. I tried to respond modestly, despite the buildup of frustrations I had. And because of that, my income is stable, so Ben doesn't have to bear the burden. And about the remittance. However, while I was speaking, my father-in-law interrupted me grumpily.
Instead of being grateful to your husband, you have to make everything about your doing. That's why I dislike mannish women.
Facing such attitudes, I realized that saying more could lead to a serious argument. Thinking this, I closed my mouth, and Ben seemed concerned as well. When we got home, he immediately apologized for his parents' behavior.
As promised, the remittance is coming from your money, and I've explained that to them.
Ben looked apologetic, and I returned a wry smile. It's not your fault, so don't worry. To my in-laws, even the fact that the wife was making the remittance might seem presumptuous. Surely they must understand that they are benefiting from this. But feelings are feelings, I suppose. Maybe emotions just can't be changed. Thinking that we might never understand each other for the rest of our lives, I felt a little sad. Within 6 months, I was summoned to my in-laws' house for a family gathering. Ben's family is large, and preparing meals for such gatherings is always a struggle. Yet cleaning the entire house and cooking massive amounts of food always falls to me.
Hurry up and work. Don't think you, a daughter-in-law, get to rest.
Without wringing a rag or washing a potato, my mother-in-law just sat there giving me orders. It's always like this when relatives gather, but this time I had been working overtime until the day before. By the time the relatives gathered, I was completely exhausted. While eating dinner, I was thinking about finally sitting down, but I couldn't relax for even 10 minutes.
Hey, you, come here and pour the drinks.
I was called over by my father-in-law before I had even finished eating half of my meal. His face was red, clearly drunk already. My father-in-law, who hadn't helped prepare for the banquet at all, was just eating and drinking as he pleased. Unlike the carefree father-in-law, I was exhausted from working nonstop and really just wanted to lie down right then. Moreover, I hadn't had a proper lunch, so I was at my limit. That's why I responded with both my body and spirit utterly drained. Please, wait a moment. I've just started eating. Can you wait until I've finished my plate? In the next moment, my father-in-law's angry voice boomed.
How dare you defy me, just a daughter-in-law?
I heard his rough footsteps approaching, but I didn't have the luxury of looking up for my meal. Since I was already being assigned tasks while eating, I hurried to finish my meal, preparing to be yelled at from close range by my father-in-law. However, before I could even look back to see what was wrong, something cold was suddenly poured over my head. What? For a moment, I was stunned, but then I quickly noticed the wine bottle in my father-in-law's hand, and from the liquid dripping down from my hair, I recognized the distinctive smell. It was definitely wine that had been poured over me. I was astounded by this unexpected turn of events, and then I heard my mother-in-law's sneering voice.
Ah, what a fitting sight for a useless daughter-in-law.
Instead of reprimanding her husband, my mother-in-law seemed rather pleased and continued.
Oh, what's with that look? I've heard that wine contains good ingredients for the hair. Maybe this will boost your feminine charm a bit.
It seemed she no longer bothered to hide her disdainful attitude towards me, even in front of the relatives.
It's because you never obey your husband's parents, even though you married into our family. You brought this on yourself. Clean this up.
After saying this, my father-in-law left the empty bottle by my side and returned to his seat.
Really, what a useless daughter-in-law. I wish you would just leave.
At that moment, something snapped inside me. As the wine cooled my hair and shoulders, my insides boiled with rage. You always say I'm useless, but then please stop depending on me for living expenses. Determined to say everything on my mind today, no matter how hostile the atmosphere, I glared at my in-laws. However, they just laughed off what I was saying.
When have we ever relied on someone like you? Ben helps us out with a monthly allowance of $3,000. You don't do anything, do you?
Hearing this, I was momentarily speechless, unable to grasp the meaning of their words.
That's right. You have nothing to offer but your education. Just a useless wife leeching off her husband. Don't take credit for what your husband does.
It took me a few seconds to realize they didn't know who was actually providing the money. Ben, what do you mean? I thought you explained that the money for the allowance comes from me. I turned to my husband, who was sitting silently next to me, and he awkwardly looked away. That's when I finally understood. Ben had lied. He hadn't told his parents that the money was coming from me. It was natural that their attitude was still bad. Ben had been claiming the allowance as his own achievement. As I looked down, drops fell from my wet hair. Though Ben had some pride, I hadn't expected him to lie. He knew how his parents were treating me. Ignoring the reason I had asked him to tell his parents, how could he not have imagined this? If Ben had properly conveyed this, I wouldn't have suffered like this today. Realizing that the husband I trusted had actually betrayed me, I was too shocked to look up. My in-laws continued to berate me as usual. The relatives were perplexed, but those two didn't care about anyone's gaze anymore. As I listened to the barrage of insults with my head down, questions began to arise. Why did I have to put up with all this chaos? Had Ben ever really stood up for me before? Why was it always me? As these thoughts circled in my mind, the words just came out. Then I'll stop the allowance and leave. Those words resonated deeply within me. Yes, I'll leave. There's no reason to deal with these people anymore. Feeling strangely liberated, I left my in-laws' house, ignoring the shocked expressions of my in-laws. The call from Ben came the next day. I had left my in-laws' house with only my essentials and important belongings from our home. I also left the divorce papers. Ben must have been surprised when he came home and found them.
Where are you? You don't even have a home to return to.
I don't have parents to go back to, so going back home isn't an option for me. That's why Ben never imagined that I could actually leave. Me? I'm at an internet cafe right now, gathering real estate information. Ben raised his voice in response.
For what purpose?
Well, you saw the divorce papers I left, didn't you? If we're getting a divorce, I need to find a new place to live. My matter-of-fact tone seemed to shock Ben, and he fell silent for a while. Finally, he spoke in a strained voice.
I want to talk in person.
Accepting Ben's request, I paused my search and decided to return home for a while. When I arrived, Ben was waiting with a stern look on his face.
Are you serious about getting a divorce?
I nodded silently, and Ben looked displeased.
It wasn't me who threw the drink on you.
You think that was the only issue? Have you ever acted appropriately towards me during our entire marriage? Despite being my husband, Ben had never protected me from his parents. If a spouse sees their parents mistreating their partner, they would usually defend them or intervene. But you didn't, did you? Throughout our marriage, Ben had me contribute financially while resenting that I earned more. Now I understand. I felt unnecessary for having a high income because my own husband devalued me. Moreover, you squandered every chance to improve our situation for the sake of your own pride. You acted as if what happened to me didn't concern you, right? If he had handled things properly, I wouldn't have had to struggle unnecessarily. If he hadn't lied about the money, his parents might not have treated me so badly. Even the incident with the wine yesterday was ultimately because of Ben.
But that's not a big deal. You know the term support from behind? Traditionally, it's the woman's role to keep the home, but since you earn, you should support me with your financial power.
However, Ben pursed his lips and continued to complain. I wouldn't mind taking on more of the household expenses or even the allowances if you had treated me fairly, but that's not the case. I glared at Ben sharply. I supported us in the ways I could, but you disregarded that and continually worsened my situation. That's why I've had enough. Ben still wore a dissatisfied expression, as if unwilling to admit any wrongdoing, resembling a child scolded for mischief. Remember how you always said, stand by your husband? Does that mean I should stay silent even when you take credit for my contributions? The issue of the allowance was indeed a case of Ben taking credit. I confronted him about this, and Ben, perhaps feeling cornered, suddenly shouted,
Enough! Fine, I get it. It's all my fault, you say. If that's what you want, I'll give you your divorce.
With that, he grabbed the untouched divorce papers, slammed them down on his desk, and hastily signed them.
There, happy now?
He smirked as he pushed the signed papers towards me.
I'd love to see how long you can survive on your own. You who have nothing but your education and rely on me for everything.
For a moment, I was stunned by Ben's mocking words. I don't recall relying on you that much. We split the household chores fairly, and I contribute more to our expenses. Ben frowned and retorted.
What? You're talking nonsense. All the living expenses come out of my account. Despite your earnings, you're stingy. You could have just silently given up the money for my parents' allowance.
It seemed he was under some misunderstanding, likely because all the withdrawals were set up through his account. He had apparently forgotten who was actually making the deposits. If left alone about the allowances, Ben might have eventually started to believe his own lies about his parents' situation as the truth. Well, it doesn't matter. Once I stop depositing, you'll see the reality soon enough. Here, take this. I handed him the papers I had printed at the internet cafe. Ben didn't take them.
What's this? If you want to leave so badly, go ahead. Where you live after this has nothing to do with me.
Ben glanced briefly at the papers, noting they were all for small one-room apartments, and smirked condescendingly.
After all your talk, it's pathetic you can only afford such a small place.
But again, Ben was mistaken. These aren't for me, they're potential places for you to live, because this house is in my name. Did you forget that? I'm the one paying the mortgage? Ben froze, seemingly having truly forgotten. Did he finally understand that it was he who should leave if we divorced? I can't say I've gathered enough information just from yesterday, but it should help you get started. Frankly, I shouldn't have had to do this research, but I went to the internet cafe and prepared the documents, hoping he'd find a new place quickly. All these properties are not too far from your workplace, and they're affordable on your salary. My mention of income seemed to irritate Ben further.
Don't joke with me.
In the past, I might have rushed to appease him, but I now realized that was a waste of effort. After all, the truth about his lower income needed to be acknowledged for us to move forward. It's because I've always been too considerate that this has happened. Before we were married, I thought he was a bit unreliable but a kind person, and I didn't care about his income, so we got married. If he had just accepted the facts as they are and acted appropriately, things wouldn't have come to this. You know, I think you understand this, but from now on there will be no more allowances, so we have to make your father and mother financially independent, okay? I thought I was just stating the obvious, but Ben immediately turned red and burst out in anger when he heard it.
My parents live on their pension. Are you telling me to abandon my elderly parents?
Faced with Ben's outcry, I sighed. That's what pensions are for, to live within their means. It's ridiculous to ask for allowances just to live luxuriously.
But...
Ben tried to argue but couldn't find the right words. It's unlikely that those two, already accustomed to a luxurious lifestyle, could adapt to a frugal life now. But it's okay. If things go well, your father can manage to live behind the bars. Then the only person who will need living expenses is your mother. We can manage that for one person.
What? What do you mean?
Surprised by Ben, I urged him. Remember what your father did to me yesterday? Seeing that he still didn't understand, I reluctantly explained. You see it often in comics and dramas, like throwing water or coffee at someone, but legally that can also be considered assault. In other words, my father-in-law could be prosecuted for throwing wine on me. Actually, before I came home yesterday, I had already consulted with the police. The officer was kind and sympathetic as he saw me soaking wet and smelling of alcohol from my hair and clothes, but honestly, I am still anxious. It's clear I was victimized, but there's no physical evidence that my father-in-law did it. All the witnesses are relatives, and if any of them protect my father-in-law, there might not be enough evidence for a prosecution. But I didn't plan to tell Ben that.
Are you really trying to put your own parent-in-law, even if by marriage, behind bars? You heartless, ungrateful person.
Even as he yelled, I felt nothing. Who's the ungrateful one? You can't live without my allowances. Well, you probably didn't know that because of your actions, but that's just unacceptable. I had done most of the work preparing for yesterday's banquet. Even that alone should have earned me some gratitude from my in-laws, but they took it for granted. That treatment was indeed the epitome of ungrateful. But Ben still had a sulky expression as I delivered the final blow. You seem to forget, but the relatives were watching then, weren't they? If they are decent, they'll tell you how terribly your parents treated me. It seems neither my in-laws nor Ben was aware of the others watching them during the incident. By confronting him with this reality, Ben finally seemed to understand that his family would be isolated if things continued this way.
No joke. If you leave under these circumstances, my parents and I will be blamed by all our relatives.
Yes. I nodded, seeing Ben's pale face. If we divorced after what had happened, it would be clear where the fault lay without needing to explain.
Yes. If you come back, everything will be resolved. It was just a little prank.
I grimaced deeply at that. Why should I cover for you? It's your own doing. Clean up your own mess. But Ben's reluctance to give up was the only admirable thing about him.
No, I really don't want a divorce. I love you.
Ignoring him, I carefully placed the already filled out divorce papers in my bag. Just leave quickly. With that, I hurried off to the municipal office. Later, my father-in-law was arrested for throwing the drink on me. No one protected him, and solid testimonies were given, partly because someone had recorded the incident on their mobile phone. As a result, my father-in-law now faced a strict trial and criminal charges. Having lost the allowance, my mother-in-law struggled financially and turned to Ben for help, but he couldn't manage without my support. No one in the family was willing to help, knowing the situation. The arguments between my resentful mother-in-law and the verbally abusive Ben continued daily. As for me, I was free from the troubles of the past and could focus on my work with a brighter outlook. Thanks to this, my performance at work improved, and there were talks of a promotion. Being competent at work is not a shortcoming as a woman. It's one of my strengths. From now on, I've decided to live as myself, without associating with those who belittle me.
I went ahead and got a divorce. I'll be taking the house as part of the settlement. You have no say in it. After saying that, Nick left the hospital room. My pleas to wait and my willingness to discuss were all ignored by him. This is how I was abandoned. Left alone while dealing with cancer. Yet, somehow, the lingering frustration in my heart seemed to have dissipated. Perhaps, by this point, my love for Nick had already faded. Nick, who toyed with me and repeatedly acted selfishly, deserves divine retribution. Thinking so, I began to devise a scenario for revenge. My name is Michelle Brown, a housewife in her 50s. I live with my husband, Nick. We have no children, and I thought we had been supporting each other throughout our marriage. At least, I had been. But between Nick and me, a gap had formed that would never be filled. Generally, a marriage is about supporting each other, striving together, and filling what lacks in one another. However, there was none of that between us. Hey, where's my dinner? If you don't make it quickly, it's going to be a problem. I had been out on an errand. When I returned home, Nick, who had the day off, poked his head out from his room and demanded his meal. There are no breaks for a housewife. Because if I neglect household chores even for a day, our life falls into disarray. Meanwhile, Nick, a regular office worker, had days off. However, he spent these holidays only for himself. Even though I was busy with various things, in our 30 years of marriage, Nick had never once offered to help. Housework is the job of a housewife. It's only natural for a working adult not to shirk their duties. That was Nick's reasoning, and even if I was sick, he never allowed me to take a break from household duties. Sometimes, I was so sick that it was hard even to get up. Yet, when it was time to eat, Nick would come to my room and insist, make the meal. He never showed any intention of caring for me when I was ill. On the contrary, I have plans with friends, he would say, and leave the house alone, returning late at night, drunk. Marriage is about supporting each other, that's why I married Nick. However, Nick and I had vastly different views of marriage. I tried various things to bridge this difference when we were newly married. But no matter how much I tried to talk, Nick never admitted he might be wrong and harshly scolded me, saying, "Don't complain when you're just a housewife." My love for Nick had long since faded. It's not that I was thinking of leaning on Nick or anything like that. Just that I am human too, and there are days when I suffer. So it would be nice if he could support me a little during such times. But even that notion was not acknowledged by Nick. From the moment I realized this, the distance between Nick and me gradually widened. Eventually, I no longer felt like facing Nick, and as the days passed, even seeing his face became a burden. Our relationship had completely cooled off. I knew better than anyone that continuing this relationship would not be good. Then, a change occurred in my body. I had always been prone to illness, but this felt clearly wrong. So I contacted my father at my home, and he took me to the hospital. There, I was diagnosed with cancer. Fortunately, it was discovered early, so there was a chance for treatment. I immediately asked my father to pick up the essential belongings from our house. And I proceeded with the hospital admission procedures. Nick was at work, so I briefly messaged him that I had cancer and was going to be admitted for treatment right away. Honestly, the image of cancer treatment being difficult and a painful struggle made me extremely anxious about what lay ahead. And at that time, the person who came to mind was Nick. I thought I had fallen out of love. But perhaps, deep down, I wanted to face Nick and spend time together as a couple. Now, weakened as I was, maybe even the cold, inconsiderate Nick, who had never shown concern for me, would worry and ask, "Are you okay?" He might even offer some kind words. Even if he visited just once, that would have been enough. I wanted to see Nick's face just once. I wondered if he would struggle with daily life without me. I felt sorry now that I could no longer do the housework. However, no matter how many days I waited, Nick never showed up. My messages were read, but not a single word came back, not even a simple okay. It was as if he didn't care about me at all. Despite having cancer and being so weakened, Nick showed no signs of concern for me. This fact shook my head deeply, causing me unimaginable pain. I knew it was foolish of me to have expectations. But is it really so bad to want some concern from your husband when you are weak? Is it so unforgivable? I had no intention of being a burden to Nick. I just wanted him to worry about me, to care for me, even if just a little. Even this small selfishness was not allowed for me. I decided to stop expecting anything from Nick. Switching my thoughts, I fought against cancer desperately. As expected, the battle with the disease was agonizing. The medication surely broke down my body. And there were many nights when I was too ill to sleep at all. I often thought about stopping the treatment and just letting my deteriorating body meet its end. Every time, my parents' encouraging words, "You'll surely get better," forced me to muster my weakened will and keep going. One day, feeling ill, I was staring blankly at the ceiling in my hospital bed when the door to the room suddenly opened. My parents weren't scheduled to visit that day. So I wondered who it could be as I looked up, and there was Nick. Had he finally come to check on me, worried about how I was doing? Seeing my face, so emaciated and haggard, I worry if Nick might dislike me even more. Various thoughts race through my mind, leaving me speechless. Meanwhile, Nick sits on a chair next to the bed, quietly observing me, and then laughs. So this is what cancer does to you? You look terrible, hardly like a woman at all. Those words send a chill down my spine. Such words should never be spoken to me, still fighting cancer. I wish he would say no more. But despite my feelings, Nick continues with even harsher words. Life has been truly wonderful without you. The house is falling apart, but I'm hardly ever there. Life without you is so much easier. His heartless words wound me again. Why must I be subjected to such words? Why doesn't he say anything that shows he cares? Even though I want to confront Nick, my weakened body fails to respond. And I can only silently receive his harsh words. I stare at him with vacant eyes. Then, noticing my gaze, Nick laughs mockingly and says something unbelievable. I went ahead and got a divorce. I'll be taking the house as part of the settlement. You have no say in it. My vision blurs. He divorced me without my consent? Why? As I remain silent, Nick continues to speak. I've fallen in love with someone else. She's 20 years younger, but it's serious. You were in the way of our relationship. He had an affair. That thought crosses my mind, but after saying what he wanted, Nick starts preparing to leave. Wait, I say, but Nick doesn't listen. There's no love left for me in him. Realizing this hurts, but then it no longer mattered. Understood. As I say that, Nick laughs contentedly and leaves the hospital room. From then on, I fought even harder in my battle against cancer. Despite the difficulties, I held firm in my resolve to fully recover from cancer and regain my health, diligently undergoing treatment. Living like this for 2 days. It might seem short, but for me, unable to sleep properly at night, those 2 days felt very long. Whether the divorce Nick mentioned actually took place or if it was just his way of unsettling me, I wasn't sure, but I was managing somehow. Above all, I had a secret plan to thoroughly bring Nick down. Realizing this would surely unsettle even the unfeeling Nick. In his panic, he would surely try to contact me. Thinking this, I waited, and just today, Nick called. Since I couldn't take the call in the hospital room, I ignored it. However, Nick persisted, calling repeatedly. Though I had set my phone to silent, it was annoyingly persistent. So I messaged him, "Stop calling, it's annoying," and he finally stopped. But then he started sending messages, "Please, I need to talk." Just once, I apologize for everything. He must have thought messaging was the next best option. Each of these words was meant to protect himself. Probably, Nick had realized why I had so easily accepted the divorce he initiated without my permission. "Can I come to see you?" When I didn't respond, perhaps out of frustration, Nick sent that message. To be honest, facing Nick now, in the midst of my exhausting treatment, felt torturous, but if I refused, I knew he would pester me with more calls. So I replied, "Yes, you can come." Now, my revenge begins. Nick, who has mishandled our relationship for so long and divorced me without my consent, deserves a harsh punishment. As I eagerly await Nick's arrival, I am resolved to drag him through hell. Hey! What is the meaning of this? With that angry shout, Nick enters the hospital room. His tone is clearly desperate, showing he is mentally cornered. To an outsider, Nick's demeanor might seem overly anxious. But it's only natural for him to panic like this. After all, I was hiding a truly significant secret. You never told me you had assets worth $10 million. If I knew about this money, I wouldn't have divorced you. Saying this, Nick places my bank account statement on the table. The document clearly shows a deposit of over $10 million. Because you didn't ask. How could anyone guess that a mere housewife like you had such wealth? If I knew there was so much money, I wouldn't have divorced you. It's your fault for divorcing me without properly checking. Don't talk nonsense. And how did you even get this wealth? Nick, who divorced me without my consent and now complains. Why didn't you tell me? I wouldn't have divorced you if you had, shows his self-centered nature. I decide to reveal the truth to Nick. In fact, this $10 million came from investments I started as a hobby. It was my parents who suggested I try investing. Even though Nick's salary was sufficient for our lives as a couple, I still wanted to contribute to our finances. My father, knowledgeable in investing, taught me everything from scratch when I showed interest. Under my father's guidance, I started small, aiming to make even a slight profit, and continued investing. My first investment was about 5 years ago. Since then, I have significantly honed my skills, and now even my father says, I didn't expect you to grow this much. I have managed to earn a considerable amount of money through investing. The $10 million recorded in the bank statement was the profit made over 5 years. I was actually planning to tell you when the time was right. But before I could, I got cancer, and you divorced me without listening. I never intended to take this secret to the grave. Once the cancer was cured and I could return to normal life, I plan to reveal this $10 million asset to Nick, to continue our life together as husband and wife, and share it with him. But before that time came, Nick divorced me on his own. It's absurd to give a share to someone who is no longer my spouse. And now that it has come to this $10 million will all be mine. Hearing my story, Nick's face turns red with anger, and he shouts, If I had known you had this much money, I wouldn't have divorced you. It's your fault for not telling me right away and hiding it. Pay me compensation now. $10 million. Make amends for hiding things from your husband. Nick, either confused by the large sum or unable to accept that he cannot have the money, makes an outrageous demand. Since we are divorced, no matter how things might turn, there is absolutely no way I would give this $10 million to Nick. Yet Nick tries to claim the $10 million, which is just out of reach, suggesting something truly absurd. And I can't help but chuckle. Seeing me laugh, Nick yells, What are you laughing at? Stop taking me for a fool. I've always hated your attitude. How dare a mere wife have such assets? Don't you think it's presumptuous? A wife's assets belong to her husband. So, give me those assets. What do you mean, a wife's assets belong to her husband? I never intended to keep this money a secret forever. You divorced me on your own before I could tell you. Don't give me that nonsense. It's all your fault for keeping secrets. Despite claiming I'm spouting nonsense, Nick turns red-faced and verbally attacks me whenever I speak. Honestly, as someone still recovering, Nick's shouting is a bit too much for me, ringing painfully in my head. I knew well that trying to talk any further was pointless. Nick would surely not listen to anything I said and try to paint me as the villain. Realizing it was impossible to discuss anything with Nick made my decision quick. Enough already. You were the one who divorced me, weren't you? You filed for divorce without my consent, right? I always thought your attitude was terrible, but I didn't think it was this bad. When one reaches their limit, can they really harbor so much anger? What I felt in my heart wasn't the pain of cancer, but anger towards Nick. Raising my voice would undoubtedly affect my body, but more than that, the anger towards Nick, who had blamed me with all the words he could think of while shamelessly sitting beside my bed, was overwhelming. What do you think I felt when I got cancer? I thought maybe Nick would worry about me a little, maybe he'd change his heart and care for me. But what did you do? You never showed up to visit me, and when you finally came, you said you had filed for divorce and would take the house. After all that, to come and blame me when you find out I have these assets, are you joking? I've said it before, but I never intended to keep it hidden forever. I was going to tell you when the time was right. You broke that chance yourself. I had never blamed Nick like this before. I always accepted Nick's selfish actions, and still, because we were married. Because I wanted to continue as husband and wife, I never really reprimanded or got my temper. Always trying my best for Nick. I could still try because I had love for Nick. I truly loved him. But now, I have no such feelings for Nick. All that's left is incredible anger and disbelief towards Nick, who only says selfish things. How does one become such a self-centered person? What kind of upbringing leads one to become so devoid of consideration for others? I'm speechless with astonishment, but ultimately, questioning it is pointless because a person who cheats and divorces without agreement can't be thinking properly. Please, she found out you have $10 million and said she'd divorce me if I don't bring some of it back. If I don't get the $10 million, I'll be alone. Don't you still love me? Don't you want to help someone you love? It seems the woman he cheated with also knows I have $10 million in assets. Nick must have told her. Birds of a feather flock together, it seems. From what Nick says, his mistress is quite greedy about money as well. It feels almost like it's someone else's problem. So much so that Nick's circumstances no longer matter to me. And I can easily dismiss any suffering he may face in the future as irrelevant. I'm really begging you. I'll do anything. Please give me the $10 million. If not, I'll be in serious trouble. Please help me. Saying this, Nick kneels on the spot, asking. I had never seen Nick so desperate, and while his display seemed utterly ridiculous, it also brought a sense of disappointment and despair because he had never shown such concern for me. The more we talk, the colder my feelings towards Nick grow. I feel it's pointless to talk anymore. Continuing to deal with this rotten man will not lead to my happiness. I couldn't help but feel foolish for having suffered so much because of such a selfish man. And also for hoping that he might show up during my illness. Despite my feelings, Nick desperately pleads, please. I'm begging you. Help me. But listening to Nick's words any further was the greatest pain of all. Please leave. As I say this, Nick responds with a wheedling tone, don't say that. Even that was irritating to me now. I press the nurse call button and ask a nurse to come. I explain the situation and ask them to remove Nick, and they call security to escort him out. Please listen to me. I can't do this without you. He continued to proclaim this until the end, but I no longer listened to Nick's words. He has visited the hospital several times since, but the nurses, knowing the situation, ensure he cannot reach my room. I heard from a friend that Nick, unable to get the $10 million, was dumped by his mistress and is now single. As for me, I continued to fight cancer with determination, and recently, I finally recovered and was discharged from the hospital. Having overcome my illness, my body feels healthier than ever. And this newfound vitality feels incredibly precious. Now, I'm living a relaxed life, slowly spending the $10 million I saved up. Honestly, now at 50, I've had enough of marriage, and I'll probably end my life alone. Living out my life unattached to anyone doesn't seem so bad anymore. Why did Dad marry such a person? I feel like the previous one was better. What are you talking about? You do know that marrying you was Dad's third marriage, right? Yes, I heard it from him. but he divorced the previous person in less than half a year. Jeff had never mentioned that part of the story. An unpleasant premonition was strongly felt. I thought, could this child have done something? At that moment, my expression must have given it away. Emma started to smile mischievously. Well, I'll tell you why they divorced. It was because I drove her away. You drove her away? The previous lady was quite nagging. So, I bullied her. All I need is Dad. Hearing this made it clear. I thought, she was overly attached, turns out she has a father complex. The harshness towards me since the marriage was all because of that. By the way, telling Dad is useless. I'm more important to him than you are. I didn't know how to respond. My silence only encouraged her further. A leftover old lady like you is only with him out of his pity. You're useless and can't even have kids. That was something I didn't want to hear, even from a stepchild. Indeed, there were no children between my husband and me. We had tried to conceive, but to no avail. However, this was supposed to be kept between my husband and me. First of all, how do you know that? There was only one possibility. I thought, did he tell her himself? Of course, Dad told me. He wanted kids, too. I figured. But I think it's better this way. Having your child would be the worst. As much as she was a stepchild, she was now my daughter. I couldn't allow such statements. Stop it now. Huh? Why should I listen to you? I wasn't sure what to expect, but all I could do was this. I'll talk to your father again, okay? Go ahead. I think it's useless. We don't know that yet. I originally thought she was a good child. However, realizing it was all a lie left me feeling more empty than sad. I consulted Jeff about this matter. I had indirectly mentioned the stepchild's attitude before. Last time, I was dismissed because she was still a child, but this time. This topic again. Didn't I say last time? She's still a child. What are you taking so seriously? Are you serious? She's already a university student. I'm tired from work. That's enough. Not being taken seriously by my husband, I inquired about his ex-wife. Then, what about your previous wife? You told me that our daughter was behind her leaving. The previous wife didn't fit in and left on her own. There's no proof of that. She told me herself. There's no way she would do something like that. Seriously, stop it. I thought, why do I have to be blamed like this? Then, an event that would influence the rest of my life occurred. It was one afternoon when I returned from shopping for dinner. From the backyard, I saw smoke rising and went to check it out. There, Emma was doing something unthinkable. What are you doing? Oh, you're back. What are you burning? Oh, this? Into my sight jumped something crucial. It was the only remaining photo of me with my late parents. The edge of the photo had caught fire, and though I reached out, the flames stopped me. Why don't you burn together with it? Ultimately, Emma was burning my personal belongings. It's just useless stuff anyway. A barren, useless old lady like you should just leave. I heard something inside me snap. That dark something slowly filled my heart. Emma had forgotten something important. I thought, who does she think pays for her tutoring? Lets her communicate with friends on her smartphone, and even covers her tuition? Moreover, I had just paid her university entrance fee before coming back from shopping. I thought, no need to hold back anymore. I took a deep breath to muster up my spirit once again. If you're going to say that, then I'm leaving. Emma's face brightens instantly. Then leave right now. You just said it yourself, so it's okay, right? I know. My belongings were burned right in front of me. There's almost nothing left to take with me. I thought, Jeff. Honestly, I don't care about him right now. All I had in my mind was the desire to leave this place as soon as possible. After that, stopping all payments would mean a closed future. I am Megan, a 40-year-old housewife this year. I married 2 years ago, and my husband Jeff was surprisingly thrice divorced. Why did I choose such a man? I had lost my parents just before getting married. I met my husband at the funeral. You're Megan, right? Yes. Excuse me, but who are you? Actually, I was helped by Nathan in the past. Nathan is my father's name. When you say in the past, you mean when my father was president? Yes, that's right. I heard about his passing through others. Thank you for coming all this way. Indeed, my father had been a president, but he had been living a retired life of ease at that time. The cause of death was a fire, originating from the guest room. The investigation suggested that it was due to careless smoking. What will you do after this? Oh, sorry to ask at such a time. I haven't planned anything yet. Just going to take it slow for now. We weren't living together, but the emotional damage was still significant. Amidst this, Jeff reached out to me. Jeff continued to look after me after that. I came to know him better. I was on leave from my company, living as I wished. If you'd like, I found a nice restaurant recently. Would you join me? I appreciate the invitation, but why go to such lengths for me? At first, I cared because you were an acquaintance, but now it's different. What do you mean by that? Sorry, forget what I just said. I feel a bit reluctant to go alone, so I'd be happy if you could come with me. Okay, I'd love to. Honestly, I hesitated, but I couldn't refuse after being invited so earnestly. He started asking me out more frequently, and I became increasingly attracted to Jeff's character. At the same time, I was beginning to accept my parents' death. Our relationship progressed quickly, and about a year later, marriage came up. But I'm very happy, but it's okay. I'm a thrice divorced man. What? What? I was indeed shocked to hear he was thrice divorced. At that time, I had just turned 38. I thought maybe I wasn't a good match for someone with Jeff's extensive experience. I decided to ask something that was on my mind. What about children? I have one daughter who's turning 17 this year. Oh, is that so? But don't worry. She's a really good girl and I'm sure she'll warm up to you. I hope so. Later, he formally proposed. I asked him to wait for my answer. I wanted to consult my parents, but they were no longer around. And I agonized over it alone for about a week. Since both parents were only children, I had no other relatives. I thought, I really am all alone. That thought made me realize the importance of Jeff's presence. Sorry to keep you waiting. Don't worry about it. About that answer. If I'm good enough for you, please take care of me. Of course. I'd like you to meet my daughter Emma later. Sure. Have you already told her about our marriage? Don't worry about that. I've already informed her. A week later, we had a face-to-face meeting, and it seemed that Emma had accepted me. She appeared much more mature than her 17 years and was a very lovely girl. Thus, we got married, but it was not without its problems. In fact, they were quite serious. The first issue arose a month after the three of us began living together. What do you mean? Sorry, I got into a bit of trouble at work. Jeff had been a department head, but due to a subordinate's mistake, he was demoted and sent to a regional office for about 6 months. So, it'll be just Emma and me living together? I'm sorry, but that's how it has to be. I'm really sorry. But you'll be back in 6 months, right? Of course. At dinner time that day, Jeff explained to Emma. Initially, she looked sad, but seemed to understand it was unavoidable and eventually accepted it. Emma, you might not be used to this, but can you help out your mom? Okay.
Yeah.
I understand. Thank you. At that time, Emma even showed me a smile. I thought, maybe this will be okay. I regretted my optimistic thinking a bit later. I wondered what would happen after Jeff left, but there seemed to be no need to worry. Mom, I'll make something today. Really? Are you sure? It's fine once in a while. You're always taking care of things around the house. Let me handle it today. She started to help prepare meals more often. I've never had a child, but I felt fortunate to have such a kind daughter. The relationship hit a yellow light when we were 3 months into living just the two of us. Emma started responding only half-heartedly to my conversations, and she spoke less and less. Concerned by the change, I decided to ask her directly. Lately, you seem a bit down. But she kept looking at her smartphone and wouldn't even look at me. Worried that our relationship could worsen, I tried to talk more. Then, Emma slammed the table and went back to her room. Worried this was a bad sign, I immediately called Jeff. That age can be tough. But I'm sure it'll be okay. Why not wait and see a little longer? I hope that works. She's been living just with me until now. Maybe she's a bit confused.
Yeah.
I trusted Jeff's words, but our relationship didn't improve by the time he returned. I'm home. Welcome back. So, how was it living just the two of you? Well, about that. Just then, Emma came running from the back and pushed past me. Welcome back, Dad. Hey. I'm back. Were you a good girl? Of course. Right, Mom? I was startled for a moment. Yes. That's right. That's good then. Emma acted completely different against me when Jeff was around. It was as if the days before were a lie, and the atmosphere was suddenly more peaceful. That's when I realized. I thought, I see. That's what it is. From Emma's behavior, I suspected she might have what's called a father complex. Then, before bedtime. Can't sleep?
Yeah.
Just a little. I see. After a moment of silence, Jeff made a suggestion. I've been wanting to say this, but I've been thinking about having a child with you, Megan. A child? Is that okay? No, it's not that. I've actually wanted one too, but I was worried about my age. There's still a chance. Shall we try? Yes. I was honestly happy with Jeff's proposal as it was something I couldn't easily bring up myself. From that day, we tried to have a child, but there was no sign of pregnancy. For now, Jeff and I agreed to see what we could do, and Jeff started to prioritize me. Emma didn't like that. Don't get too cocky. What? Just because Dad has been nice to you recently. Remember, I'm his priority in this house. I'm not getting cocky at all. I can tell. You look so happy. I might have looked happy indeed. But isn't that normal for a couple? However, Emma's snide remarks to me were just the beginning. Her behavior became more aggressive. Oops, sorry. I didn't see you there. She bumped into me on purpose while I was cleaning. I was about to mop the floor and had filled a bucket with water. When Emma bumped into me, the bucket tipped over and water spilled everywhere. Whoa. What happened here? Mom knocked it over. Is that so?
Yeah.
For now, please clean this up quickly. It's hard to walk around like this. Emma left the scene with a faint smile. This type of harassment usually happened when Jeff was not around. However, when Jeff wasn't looking, incidents like this one became a daily occurrence. And it always seemed as if I was the one who caused them. Time flies, and it was almost a year since we got married. The relationship between Emma and me was barely maintained, thanks to Jeff. Yet, a more painful truth was waiting for me. Should we give up on having children for now? What do you mean? We've tried various things, but nothing has worked. I thought, it's true that we've been trying to conceive, and it really hasn't been effective. But that's true, but there's another reason. Another reason? Actually, I've been demoted to a regular employee. Why would that happen? Maybe the higher-ups didn't like me. I protested, but pushing it further could mean getting fired. That's terrible. Why does my life never go smoothly? Eventually, Jeff's salary dropped to the level of a college graduate's starting pay. Moreover, Emma was in her 3rd year of high school and needed to start thinking about university exams. We would need even more money. That's when I decided to take a certain step. Then, I'll help with the money as much as I can. But, you're a housewife now, aren't you? I wanted to save it for our retirement, but there's money my parents left us. I didn't know that. I'm sorry I kept it quiet until now. No, that really helps a lot. Ultimately, I ended up paying for Emma's expenses. Although we didn't discuss the exams much, I became worried about the future and consulted Jeff. Indeed, Emma hasn't said anything about it. I think we should ask her at least once. It'll be too late if we wait until the last minute.
Yeah.
I'll ask her next time. That night, a meeting was held with the 3 of us. It became clear that Emma's grades had fallen drastically. In fact, it was quicker to count from the bottom up. If this continues, advancing to university will be difficult. Are you thinking seriously about your future? Emma? I am thinking seriously. Specifically? That is? Even Jeff, usually lenient with Emma, became stern at this moment. Emma probably didn't expect him to speak to her like this. She became completely subdued. Let's leave it at that for today. Then Emma glared at me. Despite my trying to help her. This has nothing to do with you, Mom. Hey. That's no way to speak. Eventually, this day led to Emma being forced to attend tutoring. I paid for it, which was not a small amount. I hoped this would make her take her future more seriously, but aren't you supposed to be at tutoring today? I felt sick today, so I skipped. Then shouldn't you rest early? I know that without you telling me. This pattern repeated several times, and eventually, the tutoring center contacted us. I got a call from the tutoring center today. Oh. The tutoring center? It seems she's been skipping a lot lately. I see. I see. The tutoring isn't free, you know. Sorry, but can you handle it, Megan? I'm really tired today. After that, Jeff stopped being strict with Emma. She wouldn't listen to anything I said. She was doing whatever she wanted. Then an event happened that made it impossible to stop Emma. It occurred one afternoon. My phone rang, it was the hospital. Okay, I understand. I'll be there immediately. When I arrived at the hospital, Jeff was lying in bed. The cause was stress, but it seemed his internal organs were already severely damaged. Why didn't you tell me? Well, I didn't want to be a burden. But it's pointless if you end up in the hospital. Sorry. I heard from the doctor that surgery is needed.
Yeah.
At a time like this. Just focus on your treatment. Thank you. I tried to call Emma to tell her this, but she didn't answer. I had no choice but to tell her when I got home. Where have you been until this time? I was at the hospital. The hospital. What about Dad? He has to be hospitalized. Huh? What do you mean? The stress has taken its toll, and he needs surgery. Emma's expression changed drastically. She clearly thought it was my fault. It's your fault. It's because of his job. I don't believe that. Starting the next day, Emma visited Jeff in the hospital every day until he was discharged. Jeff was finally discharged 2 weeks later. There was no time to rejoice at his discharge, as Emma's exams were imminent. Moreover, Emma did not want me anywhere near Jeff. I had become an enemy to Emma, and she stopped talking to me altogether. Tomorrow is finally Emma's exam day. Yes. Are you that worried? I'm sure Emma will be fine. I hope so. That day, Emma came home with a satisfied look. So, how did it feel? I probably passed. That's great. But just in case, make sure you take the safety exams too.
Yeah.
I will. Emma does not know that I paid for the exam fees. Well, I'm not planning to tell her now. Months later, the day of the admission results arrived. I had anticipated it, but it was as I feared. Emma had failed to get into her first choice university but had barely passed her safety school. Jeff seemed happy, but I was not. I thought, that's what happens when you play around that much. Sorry to ask, but can you also cover the entrance fee? Okay. But are you really okay with this? What do you mean? It's just a safety school. If she's okay with it, then as parents, all we do is support her. Right. Then, on a day close to Emma's graduation, Jeff had to work on a rare Saturday, leaving us alone for the first time in a long while. Why did Dad marry such a person? I feel like the previous one was better. What are you talking about? You do know that marrying you was Dad's third marriage, right? Yes, I heard it from him. But he divorced the previous person in less than half a year. Jeff had never mentioned that part of the story. An unpleasant premonition was strongly felt. I thought, could this child have done something? At that moment, my expression must have given it away. Emma started to smile mischievously. Well, I'll tell you why they divorced. It was because I drove her away. You drove her away? The previous lady was quite nagging. So, I bullied her. All I need is Dad. Hearing this made it clear. I thought, she was overly attached, turns out she has a father complex. The harshness towards me since the marriage was all because of that. By the way, telling Dad is useless. I'm more important to him than you are. I didn't know how to respond. My silence only encouraged her further. A leftover old lady like you is only with him out of his pity. You're useless and can't even have kids. That was something I didn't want to hear, even from a stepchild. Indeed, there were no children between my husband and me. We had tried to conceive, but to no avail. However, this was supposed to be kept between my husband and me. First of all, how do you know that? There was only one possibility. I thought, did he tell her himself? Of course, Dad told me. He wanted kids, too. I figured. But I think it's better this way. Having your child would be the worst. As much as she was a stepchild, she was now my daughter. I couldn't allow such statements. Stop it now. Huh? Why should I listen to you? I wasn't sure what to expect, but all I could do was this. I'll talk to your father again, okay? Go ahead. I think it's useless. We don't know that yet. I originally thought she was a good child. However, realizing it was all a lie left me feeling more empty than sad. I consulted Jeff about this matter. I had indirectly mentioned the stepchild's attitude before. Last time, my opinion was dismissed because she was still a child, but this time, this topic again. Didn't I say last time? She's still a child. What are you taking so seriously? Are you serious? She's already a university student. I'm tired from work. That's enough. Not being taken seriously by my husband, I inquired about his ex-wife. Then, what about your previous wife? You told me that our daughter was behind her leaving. The previous wife didn't fit in and left on her own. There's no proof of that. She told me herself. There's no way she would do something like that. Seriously, stop it. I thought, why do I have to be blamed like this? Then, an event that would influence the rest of my life occurred. It was one afternoon when I returned from shopping for dinner. From the backyard, I saw smoke rising and went to check it out. There, Emma was doing something unthinkable. What are you doing? Oh, you're back. What are you burning? Oh, this? Into my sight jumped something crucial. It was the only remaining photo of me with my late parents. The edge of the photo had caught fire, and though I reached out, the flames stopped me. Why don't you burn together with it? Ultimately, Emma was burning my personal belongings. It's just useless stuff anyway. A barren, useless old lady like you should just leave. I heard something inside me snap. That dark something slowly filled my heart. Emma had forgotten something important. I thought, who does she think pays for her tutoring? Lets her communicate with friends on her smartphone, and even covers her tuition? Moreover, I had just paid her university entrance fee before coming back from shopping. I thought, no need to hold back anymore. I took a deep breath to muster up my spirit once again. If you're going to say that, then I'm leaving. Emma's face brightens instantly. Then leave right now. You just said it yourself, so it's okay, right? I know. My belongings were burned right in front of me. There's almost nothing left to take with me. I thought, Jeff. Honestly, I don't care about him right now. All I had in my mind was the desire to leave this place as soon as possible. I returned to my parents' house for the first time in years. My parents had passed away since then. Even calling it a house is a stretch. It had burned down, and there was nothing left of it. I thought, what should I do now? Having nowhere to live, I decided to stay at a hotel near my former home for the time being. Of course, Jeff called many times that day, but I ignored all his calls. About a month later, I went to check on Emma and Jeff. They lived in a single-family home in a residential area. From a distance, I watched as a tired-looking Jeff came out of the front door. I quickly hid, but he spotted me. Where have you been all this time? I've been staying at a hotel. I was worried because you left so suddenly. Haven't you heard anything from Emma? About what? I thought, I see. Is Emma home now?
Yeah.
She's there. If you want to know why I left, you should ask Emma. Wait. Let's go to the house right now. Saying that, Jeff took my arm and led me back to the house. Why are you here? It was clear she was panicking. I thought, well, it doesn't really matter. We sat down at the table, the three of us together. So what does Emma know? Emma remained silent, not answering anything. I sighed and began to speak. Emma wanted me to leave, saying I wasn't needed in this house. What? Of course, that's not all. By the way, have you seen the backyard? No, I haven't, but what about it? She was burning my precious things there. What do you mean? She thought that would make me leave, didn't she? You did that. Emma's face had turned even paler than before. I thought, she shouldn't have started it in the first place. And there's something I need to tell you. You talked to Emma about our fertility treatments, right? That is. You're at least partly to blame for letting her get out of control. I didn't come here just to see how things were. Here, take this. What's this? Divorce papers, obviously. There's no way I can live with these people anymore. Also, I've stopped all payments, so you'll need to handle it from now on. Wait. I'm not waiting. After all, your daughter told me to leave.
Bye.
I then left the house where I had lived for about 2 years. I felt no nostalgia at all. Later, Jeff was reluctant to divorce, but when I threatened to consult a lawyer if he delayed any longer, he got scared and submitted the divorce papers willingly. I've submitted them. Thank you. Now we're complete strangers. Are you really not coming back? Why would I do that after we've divorced? But how will I manage life now? That's none of my concern. Don't contact me ever again. I almost forgot to mention, but Emma's tuition fee was to be paid in installments. That means the other half still needs to be paid. It turned out later that Jeff had less money on hand than expected, and ultimately, he couldn't pay the rest of the tuition fee, leading to Emma's admission being cancelled. But the story didn't end there. What do you want? I'm sorry. Please come back. Huh? Are you serious? Dad told me to, and I realized my mistakes. I see. But you should have realized that much earlier. Too bad. I'll apologize more. I sighed and hung up the phone. I hadn't expected her to be so shaken, but it was too late. She can struggle a bit more for all I care. As for me, I managed to find a new place to live. I want to live freely, without anyone else's scrutiny.